All right. Michael Hunter joins me now, heavyweight contender, speaking to me for the second time today. Our first interview had to be scrapped after it was learned later in the day on Wednesday that his fight against Jarrell Miller, which was tentatively scheduled for September 11th, was now off. And Mike, as I'm speaking to you, I was scrolling through Instagram and Jarrell Miller is blaming all of this on you. He says you
Right.
backed out of this fight. Tell me your side of this story.
Well, we had been told by Bash that there's more problems than just Don. It's a bigger issue. I think that because of Big Baby Miller's different promotional people pulling him different ways and managers and all that, and him having those drug issues. I think that it was a lot of controversy on that side. We were handling, like I said, everything on our side was pretty thorough, and that was the only reason that I actually, entered and went before I even decided to leave my mandatory position. I made sure very thoroughly that that they were going to answer those two questions, like I said, with the one of the questions being, will Big Baby Miller fight me, and will the promoters and the networks stand strong? And they told me to go through a certain the Nevada Athletic Commission, and Nevada Athletic Commission will kill the situation, and they did that. So for Big Baby to try to point the finger at me is really funny. And I even said that. I said, look, if Big Baby starts talking mess, because he's been quiet for 2 weeks, he hasn't said not one thing. He hasn't posted a video. He hasn't said nothing. And you already know his antics. So I said, if Big Baby starts talking mess, that means the fight is off, because he's been quiet the whole time, and now obviously that's what he's doing. So, and I see that he's trying to paint the narrative and put it on me, which is not necessarily the case. That we've been told by several different guys, the attorneys and the promoters over there, that Big Baby had much bigger problems than Don King, and we've already handled the Don King situation. So that's the end of
So,
what
so let's unpack a couple of those things. One is the specter looming over this fight was Don King threatening legal action to
right.
stop this fight. Don King claims to have you under contract. Don King went as far as to schedule, apparently, a fight between you and Kubrat Pulev in October. I mean, I don't know if you had any belief that was actually going to happen, but that was what he was ultimately saying. Do you think that Don King had anything to do with this fight being canceled?
No, because like I said, I was very, very adamant about this. I cannot take a step forward and losing my mandatory position if these answers are not, if they didn't give me the right answers with this. And the first one was Big Baby Miller going to step in the ring with me? And they said that he kind of he's been forced a little bit, and if he doesn't really fight on these shows, then he wasn't gonna get another one or whatever. But I think that he kind of escaped that actual excuse, because he had much more problems than whatever the issue is, and that was told from their side of the promoters. I think that obviously Don King's antics and stuff like that, screaming and yelling. But if you see, Don King originally is saying he was suing the WBA, and then the next day he put out that I was going to be fighting for the WBA title. So, and usually when you put out cease and desist letters, you send a contract that this is my fighter, and he never did that. It was just more of a play. It was never filed, so it was just more of a publicity stunt. He was able to touch a lot of big media, inside, the people of YouTube media that have millions of followers, and get the story out the way he wanted it. But, like I said, I've already had talked to the promoters, the network, and I had several attorneys on the line all together, and they told me exactly what to do. To talk to the Nevada Athletic Commission, and they would handle it, because Don really doesn't have a leg to stand on. I showed him all the contracts that we previously had signed, all the bout agreements, and they all looked over it, and they knew what was going on. So that one was more, and they couldn't promise that Big Baby was going to jump in there. As I said before, that's been my main thing, is the fighters end up pricing themselves out or jumping out. So and now watch, you're gonna hear Big Baby talking a lot of mess because now he doesn't have to fight me. It's like a guy that's behind bars and says, yeah, all that hooping and hoorah and stuff. But when it was really coming down to it, you see, he had nothing to say. So
So, so if it's not Don King, I'm just trying to unpack all this because you said a lot in terms of why this fight might not have happened. When you've talked to people involved with all this, like what have you been told is the number one reason this fight is not going to move forward?
well, the thing is they didn't really actually tell us a reason. They said, but they just said, look, between you and I, that the Don King thing is not the biggest issue, and the biggest issue is has something to do with Big Baby Miller, and they didn't really explain or tell us exactly what it was, but we, like I said, he's had a lot of different managers, a lot of different promoters. I know he's always arguing with Salita, and Salita's always taking him to court, taking his money, and also he kind of shot himself in the foot by pointing all these people and trying to get a big deal. He would have got more. He would have got paid more if he would have just took the Fabio Wardley fight originally, but he priced himself out just like he kind of tried to do this time. But they kind of had put an ultimatum on him, and he had said originally, he had said yes, and that's why I said okay, because that was my biggest concern really. Was were they going to be able to get this man in the ring with me? You know what I'm saying? We've been knowing each other for quite some time. He's seen me. I used to tell everybody when I was in the amateurs, I used to be in the Vladimir Klitschko camp, and I was the number one sparring partner as an amateur. And at the end of it, I had a little controversy with Vitaly Klitschko, and me and him had a little out. And the next day, I ended up sparring with Vladimir Klitschko, which he wasn't even in camp. I wasn't supposed to, but they were trying to get me, discipline me in some way, and they couldn't do it. And he seen me at my best sparring both of those guys, and Big Baby Miller was right there. So he's been known, and if he's on camera always saying that he would never fight Michael Hunter. So for him to go silent, and now he's going to be talking and yapping his mouth, it's just who he is. So I have no, like I said, I have no bad blood. I'm still moving forward, and we're gonna get a deal done anyway. I'm gonna be fighting here shortly.
So just to address it specifically, unequivocally, you were fine with the terms. You were fine with the contract. You were locked in, ready to go to fight Big Baby Miller on September 11th.
I signed my part. What I heard was, he signed his. I wasn't, we weren't sure because everything went silent. We knew that they did tell us that he didn't want to promote. He was having a hard time promoting the show and all that, which that's not normally an issue for him. But they said that he was giving them issues, you know what I'm saying? Giving them a hard time about the whole fight. Maybe so he was probably having a hard time signing it and all that. Before I signed it, Big Baby made sure that I was going to sign it. You know what I'm saying? And I was gonna, they kept asking me, hey, Big Baby said they want to make sure that you sign it so get yours. So I said, okay, as long as you guys can, answer those two questions, and you guys are not going to be scared of Don. And then, like I said, they had several attorneys and the promoter and all of us all on the phone together, and they told me the protocol, and they said if I do that, then I would be good, and I did. I went through that. I wouldn't have just not go through it, and lose everything. And so yeah, that was that's how it really went out. And I know that he's going to be trying to create some type of story and say something because now he knows he's not fighting me. So obviously, always the big mouth is always going to say something when they're in a different position. So he better be lucky that something else doesn't happen and they force him again. So at any time that we could get this thing to happen, depending on his situation or whatever, however he's scooted by this situation. And if you know if you know me, I've never ran from a fight. I've never shied away from any competition, and we know that Big Baby's Miller's energy has definitely changed before and after. So
So if Big Baby Miller is out and he's not looking to fight you, you've got to turn the page. You've got to move on. Are you still hoping to fight during that week? Are you hoping to fight on the Canelo Crawford undercard? Like what's next for you?
Well, I got to sit down to them. They definitely said that they were the winner would have gotten a even better fight. And now that they know that I have nothing to do with it, maybe they're looking for opponents. I know it's a short time. If anybody can get it done, Turkey May could get it done. You know, but uh, definitely I'm gonna have something right in behind this. It's unfortunate that because it's in my hometown, it's Las Vegas. I was the main event, so this was just perfectly ideal for me. The writing was on the wall, and Big Baby knew it.
I asked you about this when we spoke earlier, so we'll ask you here again. We saw Moses Itauma this month come up with a big win in Saudi Arabia. He's being widely billed as the next big thing. Obviously, he wouldn't fight on September 11th, but if a fight against Itauma was presented to you, how would you react to it?
Like I said, I never shied away from any fight. I love that fight because he's a high competitor. He's a high competitor, and I like to play chess with the best of them. So uh, I will fight anywhere, anybody on any circumstance, like my father. So that's just in my bloodline. And Moses is a great dude. I love, like I said, when the first time I met him, he made me feel like a old legend, and it was actually really cool to experience being with him. I didn't even know who he was at the time, and but he knew exactly who I was, and he was like a fan, uh, and he showed a lot of respect. He was really cool. Like I said, but I'm just trying to, put my mark here on the boxing. So if that's who they want me to step in with, and the money's right and the situation's right, I will not say no. I think that there's a lot of different other fights that I could be showcased, and build the hype up because I haven't been on the scene like
Give me one of them. Give me
lately.
one of them. What's if you could choose an opponent either for September or before the end of the year, who would be
I
your
like
first choice?
I would say I like Ajay Caballero. I think that's a very good fight. I think he's part of that boogeyman side. He's on the boogeyman side, and those are the guys I like to fight. So obviously we have Martin Bacoli, which I've already been there and done that. So, but he's been winning and stuff like that. But I think that Ajay Caballero would be a good fight. I think. Who else we have over there? Any of those guys, but definitely, I just want to be out there on the scene and fight and showcase. Like I said, my only competitive fight that I really want is Usyk, because of my loss or whatever, and I want to right that wrong. So in my heart of hearts, I would want to fight Usyk, but I think to just get me on the scene and get me going and get my rhythm and my flow, and to kind of being able to, I've had a tough learning curve, what I'm saying? I've always been 2 rounds down, and that really, like I said, that's one thing that's very good for somebody like Usyk uh, and somebody like Moses Itauma, that they have the people with them from the very beginning. I was unfortunate to not have that luxury, but I'm still competitive in the ranks with them. You know what I'm saying? I'm still in the high. And I think I will beat them. I think I will beat any of those guys. Just give me the opportunity, and just give me some time. You know what I'm saying? I want to showcase my skills and get my hands wet, and I'll be ready for any and everybody.
It's crazy to me that you haven't been getting at least some opportunities. It always seems like things crumble at the last minute for you. You only get that one loss on your resume. You're a 2012 U.S. Olympian with one loss to one of the greatest fighters of all time, certainly one of the greatest fighters of this
Yes.
generation in Alexander Usyk. Well, Mike, I hope you get that fight either in September or before the end of the year. I love the names you threw out there. Ajay Caballero, I think, would be a great fight for you. You're right. He's another guy that just took advantage of these Saudi Arabian shows and burst onto the scene by beating guys as the underdog, and any of these other ones I'm sure would be great as well, man. Hope you ultimately get him, Mike. I really do.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate it. One love, baby.